Hi, my name is Jennifer Prophet with the Hopeful Neighborhood Project. And here at the Hopeful Neighborhood Project, we have a mantra that we say often: everyone is a gift with gifts to share. And we really believe that. We believe that at the heart of every hopeful neighborhood is a group of neighbors that value each other as humans. And taking that one step further, we believe that each of those humans has a gift to share, whether it's a young child who smiles and waves at everyone passing, or the widower who sits on the front porch playing the guitar for the kids coming home from school, or the neighbor who volunteers at all the neighborhood events. Each of those people in your neighborhood is a gift with gifts to share. And so today, to honor those neighbors, we are going to have Sarah Johnson teach you how to make a watercolor Valentine's Day card. And I'd encourage you, when you get the design finished on the front, to write a little note on the back, thanking your neighbors just for being who they are and sharing their gifts with the neighborhood.
Today, we're going to make a very simple watercolor Valentine that you can share with your neighbors. Before we start painting, we need to go through our supply list. So this is what you need to gather. First of all, you need watercolor paper. I have these pre-made watercolor cards that I'll be using today, but you can use any watercolor paper cut to your desired size. You do want to be sure that it's watercolor paper and not just regular cardstock, or else the paint won't look as nice. The other thing you'll need is watercolors. These are simple Crayola watercolors, nothing fancy. You can upgrade if you want, but Crayola works just fine. And you'll need a paintbrush. I recommend a pretty small paintbrush. You can use the one that came with the kit, or I have the Princeton watercolor brush here, which is one of my favorites, and this is size 6. You'll also need a pencil and a black marker of your choosing. Sharpie, kind of thin line works well, or the Papermate felt tip, just a black marker. You'll also want something to blot your brush with. I use a towel. You could use paper towel here, anything to dry off your brush. You'll also want 2 glasses of water or jars of water. One is going to be your dirty water, and then one will be your clean water. You'll also want, for this activity, the stencil that I'm using, which you can check the description of this video to find out where to get one of these stencils from the Hopeful Neighborhood Project. And lastly, if you have it, a water bottle or a spray bottle is really helpful. This isn't required, it will just help get you started. So a spray bottle is always a good idea. Now, let's get started. I'm going to take one card here, and I'm going to start by tracing my design. And on here, on our little stencil, you'll see a house with several different hearts. And the design I'm going to make is a house with little heart clouds or smoke pillars coming out from the chimney. So I'm going to start by taking my pencil and my stencil and just tracing lightly. Starting with the house. And we'll cover these pencil lines, so no need to be super cautious here. So I started with my house, and then I'm going to take these little hearts, and I'm just going to make them look like they're coming out of the chimney. I'm going to start with the really small and do maybe 3 of those, just staggering them. The nice thing about this is you can make the design however you want, with as many or as few designs as you want to paint. So I'm moving up to the medium size heart here, and I'm going to add a few more of those. And then there's one more size, so I'm going to add a few more. And with something like this, it's totally fine to have a lot of white space in your design. If you want to add more, you can fill up your entire artboard. It's totally up to you. But I kind of like the look of a clean template. So as we get up, I'm going to actually make a couple that are floating right off of the paper, so they're not a full design. So now I've got my little design traced. So the heart, or the little house and the hearts. So once you have your design traced, it's time to start painting. And there are a few methods that are really helpful when painting. First is this handy spray bottle. These are watercolors, which means they need water. And when I was first learning how to watercolor, I was really skimpy with the water, thinking that's how you did it. But actually, the more water, the better. They work really well with water. So I'm gonna give this all a really good spray. I'm just gonna get each pan full of water. This will just help loosen up the pigment and make it really easy when I go in with my brush. And then one thing to note about watercolor is the more water you add, the lighter the pigment. The less water you have, the darker your pigment. And there's a lot of different ways to approach it. For this design, we want to start light. We want to start with our lightest pigment and move darker. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to start by painting this house. And I'm going to pick kind of like a brown gray color. And the way I'm going to mix it and make sure it's a really light wash is I'm going to get my brush wet and I'm going to pick up a little bit of black and put it here in one of the pans. And then I'm going to pick up a little brown, mix it in here. You could certainly do any color you wanted for this house, but I'm going to go kind of a natural look. And now I have some pigment started here, but I know I want a really light wash. So I'm going to go back in here and add a little more water, just a bit more, and lighten this up. When it comes to watercolor, you can always go darker, but you really can't go lighter. So start nice and light and go from there. And all I'm going to do is take my brush and with a really light hand, I'm going to fill in this house. I'm starting on the edges, tracing where I've made my stencil. And then I'm going to fill it in. And at any point, if your brush gets dry, just pick up a little more pigment. You're going to fill it in. So I've got my cute little house with a nice light wash, but I want to add a little dimension here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this black right from the pan, just a dab. I'm just putting the very tip of my brush in there. And I'm going to take that and dab it into the corners. And you'll see the water that's already down will kind of pick that color up and make it bleed. And I'm just pushing it kind of where I want to go, adding a little dimension around the edges, just like this. And I'm going to kind of stay on one side. I'm going to leave this one without that depth to kind of make it look like it has a bit of a shadow. And if at any point you feel like the pigment you've dropped in is too dark or too much, you can just go back and get a little bit of water, add it and push it around until you feel like you've accomplished the color you want. Now I finished the house and here comes the fun part because we get to really play with color with these hearts. Now remember, we have 2 glasses of water. The first one is going to be where we clean a dirty brush. So if your brush has pigment on it, use this one to clean it. Give it a little dry. And then if you need clean water, you have a whole separate one right here. This will keep all of your pigments looking nice. So we're going to approach these hearts the same way we approached the house. We're going to start really light and move from there. I think I'm going to go with kind of a rainbow vibe. We're going to start in the reds and end with the blues and purples. You can pick whatever colors you want. So I'm going to pick up clean water from my clean one here. And I'm going to choose this red right here. And the same approach as the last time. I'm going to drop a little pigment here. You'll notice how bright it is. And then I'm going to pick up some more water and kind of thin this out. And we'll start with our little tiny one. For these small areas, you just really want to stay using the very tip of your brush with very little pressure. So we're going to start with our red, and I'm going to go around the edge. And I'm finding that this is really bright. You might learn that as you're painting, and I want to lighten it up. So I'm going to clean my brush. I'm going to dab it and then pick up some clean water and fill in the rest of this heart with just water to try to keep it on the light side. There we go. I'm going to clean this and we'll move on to our orange. Pick up a little orange. Give it a clean. Pick up some clean water. And I'm going to fill this in again with that very tip. Once again, I'm going to pick up some straight pigment and just drop it in and let the water move it around. And we're just going to keep doing this using whatever colors you like. If you want to kind of mix your own colors, this is a really fun time to play. So if you know you like more of a yellow green, you could add a little yellow to your green. For this green one, I'm going to play around with a couple shades. Start with this really light green. It's kind of like a neon-y color. And then I'm going to take in just a dab of this dark green and see if I can't get something I'm happy with. And then we'll add a little more water. Dropping this green in here. And now I want to add a real dark green. Right along the edges. I'm going to do another green one, but this time kind of this blue green. Ooh, you can see that's very pigmented. So we're going to add a lot of water to that. All right, let's go with our blues and purples now. With this blue, I'm going to pick up a little bit that we mixed and drop it in here just to add a little depth. And we'll do another blue one over here. With these bigger hearts, you have a little more room to play with color. So with this one, I want to add a little purple. So I'm going to grab this purple and just blot it in here. Then I'm adding water to kind of move that purple around and blend it. All right. At this point, we've colored everything in, and now we just have to wait. We have to wait for it to dry for the next step. You can speed that process up if you want with a low blow dryer, or you can just wait. What I usually do is I paint one and then I'll start on the next and then revisit to finish it up. So that's up to you, but now we wait. Okay, it's been a few minutes and we're ready for the next step. You can see here my paint is totally dry. And for the next step, you're going to take your marker. I have my handy Sharpie here. And all you're going to do is trace what you've just painted. And what this will do is kind of give some definition to your overall project, and it will hide the pencil marks that you made. This is not a time to be a perfectionist. Watercolor has a life of its own. We want to keep things loose, you know? So just go over the outlines. And it's really important that you do this after and not before, unless you know that you have markers that won't bleed. So that's why we've done it this way. There are markers you can use that you can watercolor over, but for today, we went with this approach. All right, and now you have a really cute little Valentine. And what I would recommend is that you write a really thoughtful note in here and deliver it to a neighbor. Valentine's Day is for all of us. It's for everybody. So it's a great way to say, thank you for being my neighbor. I'm glad we're neighbors, or I'd love to get to know you more. Anything like that. So here we go.